And after nearly a 2-month trial with 34 witnesses and hours of salacious testimony, a jury of 8 men and 4 women fined Sean Diddy Combs not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking, but guilty on
what I say. I said that the day before yesterday when I did the video. I said he wasn't going to be found guilty of both of those 2 charges, the main 2. I said that. That's why they put all the extra charges so they can charge him with the smaller charges, because that's just how it goes.
On 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. The judge is currently deciding right now whether Combs will actually be released today. His defense arguing that since the music mogul was acquitted of the most serious crimes, he should be able to go home. Once court was adjourned,
He's going to be released, watch.
Family members cheered today's verdict. Combs' son, Christian, telling ABC News how happy he is.
Hey, yo, we love y'all. We love everybody watching. So happy. Pop's coming home. God bless. God bless the whole world.
What was going through your head when the verdict was read? Happy.
Joining me now, Irina Roy, just outside.
The day before yesterday, I just said that these 2 charges was going to be dropped, and he was going to get charged with smaller. I just said that.
Court, legal contributor Bernardo Villalona, and also senior entertainment reporter Kelly Carter. All right, Rena, do we have any update on whether the judge will decide to release Combs at this hour?
Watch. They're going to release him. He's going to get released. Watch.
Kira, no decision quite yet from the judge. Just a couple of minutes ago, though, I can tell you we saw the Combs family van pull up to court once again, presumably to hear this decision on whether or not Combs will be released. The deadline that the judge gave both the prosecution and the defense just passed a couple of minutes ago. They were set to turn in their letters at 1 p.m. So for the last couple of hours, they've been working on their cases, both sides, for and against his release. The defense wants to see Combs walk out of those golden doors here behind us. They say that because he was acquitted of the more serious charges here, that he should go home and be with his family. The prosecutors have argued that he's a flight risk, and they say that he is still facing up to 20 years in prison on these lesser charges. They are arguing he should be held until his sentencing, Kira.
So, Bernarda, if Combs does stay in custody, how much jail time do you expect he would actually serve?
So in terms of if the judge does decide that Sean Combs remains in custody pending sentencing, the judge will ultimately determine what his sentence is. You have to think that the sentencing is not going to take place in another week or 2. We're talking about months from now that the sentence will take place. And in terms of all the time that he's already been in custody, he's going to get credit for that time. So no matter what amount of sentence the judge sentences him to, he'll get credit for about the 9 months that he has been in custody. Yes, he faces a maximum of 10 years on each of those counts. Highly unlikely that this judge is going to max Sean Combs out.
Exactly.
He can give him probation, he could give him time served, or give him something more of a year, 2 years, or even 3 years on each of these counts.
So, Kelly, how does this verdict impact Combs' legacy as an entertainer, as a music mogul moving forward, you think?
I think it does impact his legacy because we have to talk about this in addition to talking about his 3 decades as being a pop culture icon. You know, this is a human who has touched every facet of business, of industry, you know, politics, film, TV, music, Broadway, spirits, fashion, you know, but we also now have to talk about this case and the role that that plays and that legacy. And I think it's significant because unfortunately people are going to be able to unhear some of that testimony that they read, and they're most certainly going to be able to unsee that video footage from that 2016 Intercontinental incident between him and Cassie Ventura. And I think that that's going to be part of the conversation moving.
That was about the only thing he was guilty of hitting her for stealing his phone that day. She was stealing his phone that day. You know, he pushed her on the floor or whatever, because it shows in the video. He came down the hallway. He didn't have none in his phone in his hand. He pushed her down on the floor and whatever. And when he walked back to his room, he had his phone. She was trying to take his phone. That's all. And probably, you know, standing like, you know, roughing people up. blowing up Kid Cudi car because Cassie was hanging out with him because that was his girl. She was both of their girl. She liked to share, like a lot of these girls do.
Moving forward.
And Rena, has there been any reaction from prosecutors or witnesses so far on the verdict?
Yeah, well, Kira, prosecutors say that they are going to fight for substantial prison time for Sean Combs. It remains to be seen what that looks like, but they did release a statement earlier today thanking the alleged victims in this case for coming forward, saying it's not easy.
He ain't do nothing. The stuff that that's why they took the big charges off the table. It's common sense. They put the little charges on there so they could take the big charges off so they can have something to charge you with. So really the little charges he ain't even really do because they go in hand with the big charges. But, you know, they got to charge you with something. They just can't let you walk away, you know.
To share those harrowing stories. And we know that the prosecution's star witness was Cassie Ventura, Combs' ex-girlfriend.
I guarantee you, most likely, Diddy gonna have about 20 years of probation. You know what I'm saying? 20 years of probation and drug treatment. You know what I'm saying? For some you know, for you got to do drug treatment, not for 20 years, but you know, you got to do drug treatment past that, and he probably gonna have like plenty of years of probation. He not gonna get locked up though. He ain't gonna get 20 years in jail. He gonna get 20 years on probation. Mark my words.
Her attorney spoke outside of court shortly after the verdict, and he says that he's proud of her courage. He says that she is in a good place and she's happy with this outcome. Take a listen.
The reaction is that we're pleased that he's finally been held responsible for 2 federal crimes, something that he's never faced in his life. He still faces substantial jail time. Of course, we would have liked to have seen a conviction on the sex crime.
That's how they play the game. Look, something he's never seen before in his life. That's how they want to do you. They want to make you go through something you never went through just because, not because of what happened, because they know it ain't even. They charge you. These people play so many games, boy. The system is dirty.
In RICO, but we understand beyond a reasonable doubt is a high standard. And
on the real, while he talking, he probably the same. I bet you he probably party just like Diddy. Behind closed doors, he do all that freaky stuff that Diddy do. I bet you he probably party just like that.
Just pleased that
I'm not sticking up for Diddy. I'm not sticking up for Diddy. I feel like even though Cassie took Diddy's phone and he pushed her on the floor, he's still wrong for that. You know what I'm saying?
Faces substantial jail time.
And he also credits her for paving the way for other alleged victims to come forward. Remember, Combs is still facing more than 5 dozen civil lawsuits, so his legal troubles are far from over, Kira.
Yeah, and we'll be following him as well, of course. Bernarda, what impact do you think this verdict will have now on,
5 dozen. They said this man is facing 5 dozen civil lawsuits. What is that, like 70 chicks, like, or 70 people or something? That's BS. That's BS.
Future cases similar to Combs.
So in terms of what impact this verdict will have.
Not to keep us on the video, but y'all know what would it be? He probably was pressing people, like when people don't like how aggressive you be or something like that, they probably like, forget it, since he down, we're gonna kick him while he down because he rubbed me the wrong way. Not far as like sexual assault, but far as like bullying. You know what I'm saying?
Have on future cases. I think the prosecution has to rethink how it applies racketeering conspiracy, because first off, when racketeering RICO came out, it was more for mob bosses or gang activity to try to get an enterprise, hold them accountable and not let.
Yes, that's why I knew they wasn't going to be able to charge Diddy with that, because you can't charge this man with something that it's an organization charge. So it have to be an organized crime with it's organized organization. You can't charge one person. That's why they kept on trying to get people to tell on the people that work for him.
individuals get off simply because they're not being taken into account with co-conspirators or using their businesses in order to uplift their enterprise, their criminal enterprise. But I think the prosecution is definitely going to take another look of how it's being applied, racketeering conspiracy.
All right, Rena, Bernarda, Kelly, thank you all so much. And tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, ABC will release a 1-hour special that will explore the highly anticipated verdict in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. Be sure to tune in tonight or stream the next day on Hulu.
Producers, this could be the most valuable upgrade to your workflow in 2025. This is Output One, a full suite of tools.
Plenty of things the jury could have found. They decided they did not. Presumably.
How? How though? Because he's not guilty. That's how.
Yeah, that's how people reaction is wild. They how you gotta know. You can't just go off of, or they're gonna charge this man with this. You gotta know the facts and know how the system worked. I knew they wasn't gonna be able to charge him with these 2 charges, and I knew that's why they put on all the small charges, because I knew it was gonna work like this.
The Diddy verdict is officially in, and there's chatters that he could be released as soon as 1 p.m. today.
Yeah.
But this situation is still more complicated than you think, and there's still a long road ahead for Diddy. In this video, I'm going to break down the possibilities of Diddy being released today and what you can expect from Diddy moving forward.
Okay, the deputy will inquire to the verdict. In the matter of U.S. versus Combs, count 1, not guilty. Sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura, not guilty. Transportation of prostitution, guilty. So count 1 and 2, not guilty.
See how they play games? That's how the system works. They threw the sex trafficking out, right? But he charged with transportation of prostitution, which it goes hand in hand with the sex trafficking, but they had to add that extra charge on because they knew they was gonna have to throw off the sex trafficking. They play so many games. The system code.
Wow.
Mann Act, guilty.
Dirty.
Wow.
All right, so that's
Like, the system will make up a charge to charge you. They will make up a charge.
sex trafficking, no. Count 1, no. Count 3, yes. Mann Act, Cassie.
And
now we have
count
Jane.
3 is Mann Act Cassie.
Correct. Now we have Jane for the sex trafficking and the Mann Act left. No. Oh my God.
If they say yes on Jane,
If they said not guilty for Cassie,
It's just going to be the Mann Acts.
well, we got to see what they're doing. What did they say on 1?
Not guilty.
Guilty on RICO.
Racketeering,
So
not guilty.
not guilty.
Not guilty on RICO. It's only the sex trafficking of Cassie, not guilty. Transportation of prostitution for Cassie, guilty. So now we just have Jane sex trafficking and sorry, I'm yelling. Jane sex trafficking and Jane Mann Act.
Sex trafficking, not guilty. Transportation of prostitution, Jane, guilty.
Wow, so 2 of the Mann Acts. 2 Mann Acts.
first off, not to toot my own horn, but I told y'all this will be the outcome about 2 days ago. And everybody told me I was crazy because
I said the same thing 2 days ago. Look at my old video. Look at my other video about it. I said the same exact thing.
I was watching legal channels. And what I told y'all, you use your common sense and this will be the conclusion. And obviously the conclusion, as we now know, count 1, the racketeering, the life sentence, not guilty. Count 2, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, not guilty. Count 3, the transportation to engage in prostitution. He got found guilty twice on that for 2 different victims. Count 4, trafficking for another victim, not guilty. The prosecutors effed themselves over the minute they decided to rest their case the weekend of July 4th. You think they not about to give you a rush verdict? You think they about to be thinking about what? Quaaludes, baby oil, semen on nipples, while they eating a barbecue? You're out of your mind. The verdict was coming hell or hot water. It don't matter. But the verdict ain't shocking to me, obviously, because I predicted it. But also, too, I recognized very early on, this case is a Diddy case, but the verdict is not about Diddy. The verdict is about men in that jury looking in that mirror and thinking, this could be me.
Exactly.
If a woman could agree and consent to something and then regret it later, and then all of a sudden I'm in a federal courtroom.
Because people know they partake in those type of acts behind closed doors. People know they freaky just like Diddy. and they freaky with their relationships the same way. The same people that's judging him.
Being charged with trafficking, then there's no hope for none of us. If I can ask my girl, hey, babe, can I get a threesome, babe, for my birthday? And she does it, it becomes a routine thing after that. And then after my relationship, she said, he made me do the threesomes. He kept on asking me. I felt like I couldn't say no. Ow! This case is a landmark case, if you like it or not. This case is going to set the precedent for other cases moving forward. If this case would have prevailed, if Diddy would have found guilty on racketeering, there would have been no protection whatsoever for men moving forward, bruh. A woman could come forward a decade later saying, hey, bruh, I didn't want to do these things he asked me to do. Racketeering, trafficking. Come on. What are we talking about here? One woman went to court and testified that she did these things because Diddy agreed to pay her rent, $10K a month, and then she came forward and said she was trafficked, man. Excuse me? You was if this would have prevailed, can you imagine the rabbit hole we would have went down upon, bro? To all you dudes who've been big tricking in these streets, who paying women rent, who paying women bills, those women can now come forward and say, hey, bro, he was paying my bills. That's why I was being his personal freak. I didn't want to really do it. He coerced me with the paper. You out of here. Now, he was found guilty on transportation to engage in prostitution, which a lot of people thought was a guarantee. I told you guys, I thought he was going to be found guilty on those, but that really was not a guarantee. That could have went either way. He could have appealed this, to be honest. If I'm him, I'm not testing it. I'm not playing with fate like that, because the judge could very well gave him the minimum. But here's why he has a case to appeal it if he really wants to. He could appeal this on, the jurors were confused with the instructions. Transportation to engage in prostitution is a charge specifically for Jane Doe and Cassie. Daphne Joy, 50 Cent baby mama. She's the Jane Doe. And Cassie. That would mean the jurors would have to believe that Cassie and Jane Doe were sex workers and prostitutes. Mm-hmm. Now, their relationship with Diddy, they were in a consensual boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. They weren't sex workers. So I believe the jurors were confused. I believe the jurors probably didn't understand the instructions. They voted on guilty for those charges because they believed that Diddy was guilty on transporting the male escorts. He wasn't charged for transporting the male escorts. No, he was charged with Cassie and Jane Doe, transporting them to the free calls. Mm-hmm. They weren't the sex workers. They weren't the prostitutes. They were in consenting long-term relationships with Diddy. So I think he could appeal that based on the instructions weren't made clear to the jurors. But if him, I'm not testing it. Now, what is he facing? He's facing 10 years maximum for each particular charge. Is Diddy going to do 20 years? Not a chance.
Up to 20. On paper, watch what I tell you. He's gonna get out. He ain't getting no more jail time than what he did already. He gonna get paper and drug treatment. Watch.
20 years. But you know what? But that may be concurrent, and the prosecution. Well, it's two separate acts. It wouldn't be. This is even though he's found guilty, huge. This is a loss for prosecutors.
Yeah.
I mean, their whole point was Diddy was a racketeer who forced them into sex. The jury said no. It's a law.
Diddy already paid plenty of people too before all of this. If anybody don't know, he paid not far as just only like lawsuits. He paid charities. He spent about 30 to 40, 50 million. More than that, you know what I'm saying? Paying charities and all that before all this even started. Like when he first went to jail, like when everything was happening, he was paying charities and stuff like that. And all that stuff play a big part, in your case, doing that type of stuff on your own. Like people that's like regular people, you get a charge, a drug charge or whatever, and you go and do community service and stuff like that, do drug treatment and stuff like that on your own. And it make you look better in court when they judge you.
Now it's just a simple prostitution case. It's a prostitution case, which is a prostitution case that he faces up to 20 years for. No, we got that, but just the fact he brought it across state lines is different than. And by the way,
I agree. It was the easiest count, and this is a loss for the.
Oh my God!
They never. If this were just a Mann Act, they never would have prosecuted him. It's a huge win for Diddy. They prosecuted him on racketeering and on sex trafficking, and they lost.
But I think the judge will throw the book at him on the 2 counts because that's all they got him on, and he's been depicted as so monstrous during this trial that the judge in sentencing he did, but they found him guilty on the Mann Act.
The dude who's hoping and praying that the judge throw the book at Diddy on a simple prostitution charge, you's a clown. But look at journalism in 2025. Look at his reaction in the back. Hand over mouth. He is shocked. He is angry. He's upset. He's taking this as if it's a personal attack. I thought journalism was supposed to be non-biased. Why are you this personally invested in this Diddy case, bro? To where you are hoping and praying this man gets the worst. You want this man to rot in jail on a prostitution case? What happened to innocent until guilty? And then after,
and he probably do the same. He probably a freak just like that behind closed doors. That's the only thing I don't like about this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like the same people that's talking down on him, and I'm not sticking up for Diddy, but the same people that's talking down and the same people that's judging him party just like this. It's messed up.
After you get found not guilty, they still think you guilty and they want you to get forever in prison. If Diddy was found guilty, I would have said rot in jail, bro. Sayonara. If he really did the trafficking or the racketeering, rot in.
Only thing Diddy really guilty of is pushing Cassie down on the floor, bullying people, you know, stuff like that. He not all the other stuff. He ain't guilty of none of that stuff. That stuff ain't bullying people and what is that called? DV, domestic violence. You know what I'm saying?
Jail. I respect the justice system, but dudes like this will sit on television, utilize the justice system to express their microaggressions, and then once the same justice system comes back and say, yeah, he not guilty, guys, they still want him to rot and suffer. They still want him to be found guilty on charges he's not guilty of. I'm saying this is kind of...
That's just haterism, boy. They hate a rich, you know, they hate a rich black guy, I guess. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to bring race into it, but that's how I be.
I know. We don't have to think Diddy is a good person. I don't, right? I think Diddy is a horrible human being. But does this man deserve to rot for life over domestic violence or over prostitution? Come on, bro.
I think he might give him.
Well, and by the way, by finding him guilty on the Mann Act, they could have technically found him guilty on racketeering, but they didn't.
You're not
well, no, because you needed sex trafficking also.
Right.
No, because you could have two separate things.
No, but they have to be 2 different predicate acts.
Right, but the predicate acts for the Mann Act were still 2 different crimes.
I think that should be two types of predicate acts.
Yeah.
Not 2 Mann acts. I think you had to.
There were plenty of things the jury could have found. They decided they did not. Well, okay. Presumably.
How? How though? Because he's not guilty. That's how. The days of agreeing to shopping sprees overseas, $500K at Chanel on one trip, the days of being paid millions of dollars to be arm candy, knowing it ain't really going nowhere, it ain't really going to lead to marriage, but you still accept it because you want to be the $1 million arm candy, but in exchange, you got to suck a lot of love muscles, man. All right, you got to gargle cock. And you agreed to it. And you agreed to getting your cheeks clapped by 100+ men. You agreed to those infections that you was getting on a daily basis.
I want to... What y'all think, the people that's watching right now, write in the comments, what is the percentage from, you know, 100%, what is the percentage of women y'all think that will take this deal to date Diddy, you know, to participate and get paid and stuff, you know? What's the percentage y'all think?
Just because you was getting pissed on all types of shit. You agree to that. And then you don't get to leave that and then move on to a wholesome white picket.
Listen, Listen, I ain't speaking down to nobody. What victims? I mean, what victims? Who is the victim? Name the victims. Name what victims are you talking about? I want to know the victims because I'm not speaking down on nobody. The victims, they participated in sex acts willingly. They wanted to get their stuff, their bills paid. They wanted to make money. They agreed to do that. So who is the victims? Please put in the comments who the victims is.
Offense relationship, and then start regretting being an absolute slur over the years, and then come back and say, I was trafficked. Huh? Excuse me? Those days is over with. And this landmark case, bro, kind of sets the precedent, bro. It kind of restores order back into the universe, homie. This right here is a courtroom depiction of exactly what happened once the not guilty verdicts was read out. Diddy fell down to his knees like the Lord came, man. Diddy can't believe he got away with it.
I'm not sticking up for Diddy. Like I said, I'm just being honest. I just know how the law works and how cases go. I just know how the law works and how cases go, you know, and I knew that he wasn't going to get charged with this stuff. Those women wanted to do what they did to get their bills paid. They did everything for money. And when they got mad, when things didn't go their way or something, it turned out to be this. You know what I'm saying? Sex trafficking, racketeering and sex trafficking is two charges that this man is clearly not guilty of.
I'm kidding, man. Obviously, his family, they're in good spirits. They're walking out the courtroom. Now, obviously, they've been told something to make them believe that Diddy ain't going to do the 20 years that they're proposing he could do, because each charge he was found guilty on is a maximum of 10 years. That could lead to 20. They obviously don't think Diddy is going to do 20 because they smiling, they're waving, they're having a good time, they feel good.
20 years on paper. 10 to 20 years on paper, anywhere in that range. You know what I'm saying? Watch.
Now, what I would say,
it ain't gonna be no more than 20 years, no, not under, because of the case and the charge that he had. I guarantee you, it ain't gonna be under 10 years. It ain't gonna be over 20 years on paper for Diddy.
They got to be really careful.
Watch,
because this judge is looking for any reason to give Diddy the max. So King Combs, you dropping songs talking about F the victims, take that down, bro. Take that down off of all DS.
I don't feel like if the judge wanted to do Diddy dirty, he would already did it. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, his son don't get to trying to taunt the judge and do, you know, don't do stupid stuff.
He's in all social media, bro. Let the man get sentenced first and then drop songs talking about F the victim. Part of the reason they're smiling or having a very good time or laughing is due to the possibility that Diddy could be released on bond today as he awaits sentencing. Because when they were in the courtroom, the judge asked the prosecutors, yo, do you guys know any case law where somebody convicted of a Mann Act has not been released on bond awaiting sentence? Now, the prosecutors brought up a case involving children, and just like, like something that's similar to this. So the judge said, okay, let's intervene at 1 p.m. So they're going to look at case laws to try to find something that could keep Diddy in prison. But my thoughts are that's probably not going to work. Now, the official request to release Diddy out on bond has been added to the docket. Diddy attorney's letter to the judge reads, Mr. Combs moves for release on appropriate conditions pursuant to 18 U.S.C. pending his sentencing proceedings, given the jury's clear verdict acquitting Mr. Combs of the RICO conspiracy and the trafficking counts. Continued detention of Mr. Combs is inappropriate, as these proceedings have demonstrated, and as we told court from the outset of this case, Mr. Combs came to New York to surrender in order to defend against the case. Came to defend against the government charges, I should say, because he was committed to showing his innocence. Since his arrest and detention on September 17, 2024, Mr. Combs has obeyed the courts, respected these proceedings, and demonstrated model behavior at the MDC. And today, the jury unambiguously rejected the government's allegation that Mr. Combs ran a years-long criminal enterprise or engaged in trafficking, the core of the government's case. Mr. Combs stands convicted of 2 Mann Act counts, and his sentencing exposure is substantially lower than when the government initially sought detention. The court should release Mr. Combs on the proposed conditions. The conditions they're given, I think, is more than enough. You ain't never seen anybody charged with the Mann Act or convicted of the Mann Act that's putting up $1 million bond, bruh. But here are the proposed conditions, okay? So the defense proposes the following bill package. $1 million bond, co-signed by Diddy, his mom, his sister, and the mother of his oldest daughter. Diddy travel will be restricted to the Southern District of Florida, Central District of California, and the Southern District of New York to attend court and meet with his counsel, as well as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only to the extent that his travel to and from New York involves an airport in those districts. Mr. Combs' passport surrendered to pretrial services. It's already surrendered, by the way. Drug testing as ordered by pretrial services. That's going to be hard for Diddy to pass, to be honest, bro. Because when Diddy was found at his hotel, like when they came to arrest him, he was found with drugs. And they found like the red room light, which means that he brought the drugs to.
Yeah, they said that's why I said you saw in the case they were saying like, yeah, his workers, people that work in his house and stuff like that, they used to carry pouches around with drugs and stuff. So that's why I said like they're gonna give him a lot of paper and drug treatment. Watch.
To engage in a free call and all other standard conditions of pretrial supervision. This bond package is going to be accepted to me. I think any judge committed to justice, $1 million bond for the Mann Act is, man, co-sign it off. He's going to be home today. Do I believe he's going to do 20 years? No. I think Diddy is going to do time served and probation. This is his first conviction ever. Now, he was charged, as we know, with the shooting in the club, but this is his first conviction. The unsung hero in this case is Brian Steele. When Brian Steele came into this Diddy defense team, it was a mess. And one of the first things that
yeah, he did get Brian Steele. Brian Steele, this case dragged for so long and it was just so much going on. Brian Steele came in and just speeded up the whole process and got straight to it. You know, you gotta.
Brian Steele did what.
You got to pick the lawyers right too, man. You pay the lawyer all that money. They don't do the job.
He organized it. He said, listen, bro, I'm a great cross defender. I can cross-examine anyone. I'm sure you could too, talking to the lead defense attorney at the time. But he said, listen, if we want to win over this jury, this is going to be a case of perception. Diddy is being accused of being a bully. He's being accused of being someone who has this reign of terror over everyone he ever came across. We can't bring no reign of terror on the quote-unquote victims. So what he did was he brought in female attorneys, women who have also experienced their own circumstances where they were victims. And now those attorneys now cross-examining, like Cassie and Jane Doe, they were able to really dissect and make Cassie and Jane Doe look like liars, look inconsistent, without the perception of they were being bullies, because they were also women, and they were also women who endured certain things as well. So, this man, Brian Steele, perfectly crafted this defense. He's the reason why the first statement in court was Diddy is guilty of domestic violence. They got the Cassie video out the way.
I didn't even know that. See, I've been saying that. I said that. I said that's the only thing he really guilty of, domestic violence. When Cassie took his phone, he ran down the hallway, pushed her down on the floor, got his phone back. I said that.
Wait, man. He's guilty of domestic violence, but he's not being charged with domestic violence. He's being charged with trafficking, racketeering, and et cetera, et cetera. So this man really laid out the perfect defense, as perfect as you could really make it. After this trial, Brian Steele pop-out fee is $500 an occasion, man. If he's coming to court on your behalf, that's $500,000, man. $500 an occasion plus a $10K an hour fee. Because this man can get you off anything. I think the Fed's going to do something about Brian Steele, bro. I think the Fed's going to do something about Brian Steele. He keeps beating his RICO charges. Young Thug case was a state case, but he keeps beating his RICO charges. At some point, they might start charging.
He studied, he studied. That's the thing about grinding, man. When you grind and you study, you learn ways to do stuff that other people ain't, you learn your own way. You can bring your own way to teach people, different people learn different ways and learn different stuff, how they do it, you know what I'm saying? So he got a method that he learned and it works.
Charging him with a RICO.
And it's really the law. It's just knowing the law, knowing the law, knowing your rights. You know what I'm saying?
I hope his affairs is in order. I hope he got them taxes paid, because they about to go after Brian Steele, bro. You just can't be spanking these cases like this, bro. Yo, is Brian Steele the greatest lawyer of our time? I don't feel like I've seen a lawyer beat these many cases, these high-profile cases like this. But listen, man, if you enjoyed this video, I'm dropping videos on Diddy the entire day, all day. So if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for updates. I got another Diddy video dropping in like an hour. We covering every update, bro. I might drop 10 videos on Diddy today, man. So if you're still watching them and you enjoyed this video, then click on this video here somewhere on my screen, right, to find out how this.
Yeah, y'all leave y'all thoughts in the comments. What y'all think is about to happen? Is Diddy getting out today? Is Diddy getting out today? Is he going to get charged? Is he going to get 20 years for those other two charges? That's 10 years apiece. Or is he going to get probation and drug treatment? Leave y'all thoughts in the comments. Be out of here. Tap back in with y'all.